Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.
Hi, I'm Cherry Johnson with Watauga County Arts Council, and we have a glowing set here today. We've got beautiful, beautiful stained glass. You know, the Arts Council has recently moved into the Blue Ridge Art Space, a very exciting space that is filled with gift shops and, well, a gift shop and 4 galleries and 6 classroom spaces. And in the gift shop, we have some of the work of some of Watauga County's most creative artists. And among them is Marianne Rooks, who is with me today. Marianne is a stained glass artist, and she's not only in the gift shop, but she's also going to be teaching some workshops. As a matter of fact, if you were at our grand opening, you would have had an opportunity to watch Marianne demonstrate her stained glass work. So we're going to share that with you today in our interview time, so you can see an example of what Marianne does. Marianne, show me how do you make a piece of glass? I was watching you at the grand opening, and there was some really cool stuff. What is this?
Well, this is just a piece of glass that I've cut off a larger piece. Glass is really interesting because it's got a personality in a way, and when we go to cut things out, we can't just get a larger piece of glass and cut. We have to respect the parameters of the glass. So that's why I cut it off, because if I tried to cut a line in the larger piece, that would obliterate my larger piece. So we're ready to cut out to demonstrate cutting. And also, I want you to see that this is part of a pattern for a panel that will be made. And this is going to be the center of the flower. So, in order to cut this glass, I'm going to use this is called a glass scoring. We're not really cutting glass, we're scoring it. Glass doesn't cut, even though we call them glass cutters. I have previously cut out the pattern and traced the pattern piece onto the glass. And there are black lines there for me to follow as I cut. So I'm going to start cutting now, and I can hear a scratching noise, and that means I am scoring the glass. Could you hear it?
Oh yes, I can hear it.
Yeah, I'm scoring the glass with that scratch. And that makes a scratch that breaks the surface tension of the glass. Oopsie. And then this is called breaking pliers. And I set them exactly for this piece of glass. Each piece has its own setting that it likes. And then I very gently press right on that scored line. And I'm patient. And
wow,
I got a perfect little curve. And now I'll just do the other one, the other line. And just be patient. Don't press hard, and it just breaks.
That's amazing.
Yes, I'll go ahead and cut out the rest of the piece. I have to cut it off from the larger piece in order to keep it from, if I don't do that, it'll shatter or it'll break in a weird way. Sometimes it breaks in a weird way anyway.
So you're trying to just cut a little piece off as opposed to a large piece.
That's true. You don't want to butt it right up against the edge, because then you don't have anything to hold on to. So I usually try to have a 1/4 of an inch around the edge of my pattern, or a little more. Now here we go again. Gently, gently.
Wow.
And now we're going to do that last one so we can fit it in on the pattern, and you can see that. And it'll look real pretty when it's finished. It's going to have these flower centers and some yellow flowers and some clear, and every time you see a line, there's going to be probably some varied colors. So now let's move on to the next step. After we cut it out, we need to get all the rough edges off. You know, glass can be like paper. It can have little edges that somehow manage to cut you. So I have right here what's called a scythe stone. And I just take And it's like a file for glass, but it's a stone, and it's been wetted. It's nice and cool feeling in my hand. And so and sometimes when I see those little paper-looking edges that are so sharp and cut you don't even feel it, I could just go like that and knock them off. And actually, it's a lot easier to use an electric grinder, but when you've come pretty close to your lines and you haven't slid off far, it's nice to use this size stone and just smooth out your
control.
edges.
Is that what you're looking for, is a little better control with the stone as opposed to the...
Well, I just didn't think I'd need to use the grinder because it's so small. So
Gotcha. Okay.
I just keep at that. Now I'm going to show you, that's not finished by the way, but I have a piece that I have ground. It's to another object. It's going to be very small. It's going to be part of a hummingbird. And so I'm going to foil that. This is copper foil, and it's actually tape. This side is copper and this side is tape. And the tape goes on the glass on the inside edge, and then the copper naturally goes on the outside because it's what adheres to the solder and holds the whole thing together. So when I'm putting the foil on, I have to be careful because foil, the sticky doesn't last. So I try to get it right the first or second try, and I have to make sure I distribute the foil evenly between the edges and that I smooth it down on that edge so it doesn't come undone. Corners are kind of tricky. The tape wants to shift, so I have to watch that. Now I'm going to continue around here until it looks fairly even. All right, let's see how that is. Okay, now I have a little bit of an overlap here, and I want that so that none of the flux, which is an agent that we use on the tape to assist or enhance the adherence of the solder to the tape. And that flux we get rid of after we have finished soldering because it can make oxidation on the finished soldering. So now I've pinched all the edges down, and this is so small it might be difficult to see, but I've pinched all the edges down. There's still little places that pop up. So I have a what's called a burnishing tool, and I'm going to use that to make sure that everything is properly burnished. And this burnishing tool is really fun because it's just mashing it flat. You might not be able to see. And I make sure the corners are flat. Now this, on the right side, it's adhered pretty well. On the wrong side, I probably need to do some trimming because some of it's not even. So I just use an X-Acto knife or a craft knife to do that. Now the next step in making a stained glass piece, and this is a little hummingbird, by the way. And so the next step is to start soldering it together. All right.
And you've used push pins to hold this in place.
I do. And this is called homicide board. It's actually a kind of an insulation for houses They don't use it here, but I can order it by the case from Lowe's, and usually I just get it from a stained glass distributor because I don't use that much, at a time. Now, where is my soldering iron? Here it is. And this will need to be plugged in. Okay. Excuse me here. All right. Here is the plug. And this particular iron heats rapidly. Some irons are slower. But I do this regularly, so I like to make the best use of my time I can.
And what is that?
This is flux, and this is the chemical that that makes it just makes a reaction between the solder and the tin, and helps it to bond. So usually I use a brush to put this on, but then I have to carry a wet brush back and forth. So when I go places, I usually use a Q-tip, and they are, of course, disposable. Now, when you start soldering, you must first tack together the piece, and then you can actually solder the lines together. Now, when I tack, I'm just going to put a little blob of solder. I'm looking to see if my iron is set correctly. So I'm going to show you tacking now. As I said, with tacking, you get a little blob of solder, and you put it where you have a junction of seams. All right, now that's held together there. Naturally, it wouldn't do for a finished piece, but it'll do for an artist working on it. Okay, there's another thing. All right. Now, once I get all these seam junctions soldered, I take out the pins because I'm having a little trouble getting between the pins. And they get in the way when you're actually doing the seam, so we'll get those out in a moment.
So you're doing little dots of that just to hold
little
it together.
Dots. And I'll smooth those out when I start soldering the seams. So here I go, taking out the pins. Here's my pin box. Okay. Now, I'm turning this around, and I'm going to go for it. Here I go. Now I use a different technique. I'm not using a little blob. I'm putting my iron tip down directly on the glass, and I'm holding the solder to it. The solder is melting, and the iron is pulling that solder along. And that's basically the technique. When I finish, I just I do what's called tinning, and I just very quickly run a little bit of solder, which isn't sticking because I didn't put on any flux. So I just want a little tiny bit, and then I just go along the edges and tin them. And I usually use a lower heat when I'm tinning the edges because if that foil gets too hot, it'll just curl right off. So that's about all there is to it.
You sure make a very beautiful piece sound so simple.
Oh, it is.
So if you would like to learn how to do what you just saw Marianne doing, well, there's an opportunity for you. All you got to do is contact the Arts Council at 264-1789. We're going to sign you up. Now, Marianne, I got to ask you a couple of questions. First off, these creations in front of us are magnificent lamps. You make a lot of really cool stuff.
Well, thank you.
I really like your work. And the hanging piece, I don't know what you'd call it.
A sun catcher. It's something you put in the window and it catches the sun.
It is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. She's got sun catchers in our gift shop too. And we have a beautiful sun catcher here. We got one of these at the gift shop.
Yeah. Yes, it's a twirly gig. You can give it a twirl and it'll just,
It would if I would let go.
especially if it's in the wind or something.
Yes.
It does better when it's hanging on its little chain or whatever.
And then
you
it'll
use.
cast light, I'll bet. Different
Oh,
colors
yeah.
of light. I bet that's gorgeous.
It is.
And then at Christmas time, you can always have beautiful trees. You want to show off some of your Christmas ornaments here?
That's a little Christmas tree. They're extremely small. Here's a tiny bell, and
then a stocking.
and then there's also a Santa's boot. And I didn't bring everything, but there's a dove and a little holly leaves. But they have to be extremely small because they have to not weight the tree branch down. And glass is heavy.
And this is absolutely wonderful. I love your, I guess, business card holder. It is just really very well done. Is this your own design?
No, that's from a pattern that I found.
It is, okay.
But I did it when I moved to Boone because it had the mountains.
Yeah. Now, if folks want to take this workshop with you, what does that mean? Do they sign up? Do you provide the materials, or as part of the cost of the workshop, or do they have to go out and find the materials?
As it is now, it's the materials and tools are the use of the tools and the materials, the glass, and, the foil and all, is part of their fee.
So it's easy. You just sign up, pay your fee, and we're ready to go. Now, how many people will be handling in a class?
Well, right now, in the room we're in, we can handle a maximum of 6.
Okay.
And we usually don't have the class if there's less than 2.
All right. That makes good sense.
I mean, less than 3, I'm sorry.
Less than 3. Okay. So you're going to be offering the workshops. We're going to be doing them at the Blue Ridge Art Space. And so you're going to be able to work in the space there and do your workshops with us there, which will be a lot of fun.
Oh, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't know about the size of the room, how many people. It just depends on that.
We'll adjust that, and
Yeah.
you'll be able to catch that information when we post it on our website. You will be able to check our website. You'll be able to register for classes online, or you can come into the gift shop and register with one of the gift shop attendees there, or you can also mail us a check and sign up. We'll have a form that you can send in. So be checking and watching for this information. It's coming very, very, very soon. As a matter of fact, it might even already be up there by the time you see this. And so I'm real excited that this is one of the wonderful things that people will get to do. So what do they make with the workshop? What kind of item would a person be making?
Well, no, that they don't have a choice in. I provide patterns in glass it's a 6-week workshop, and I provide patterns in glass for each week. And they don't have any choice.
Because you're teaching,
But,
right?
and they do get to make 6 small things. And right now, the latest class, this was their second class, the little twirligig. It's iridescent, and it's really pretty. And they also make 1 Christmas ornament. And these are at the beginning of the class while they're really learning to do the scoring of the glass and the breaking, so they're not too overwhelmed with a large piece. And then we move on to a butterfly and a hummingbird, and then like a mountain scene, a sunrise scene. I sometimes change it, vary it depending on the group and the availability of supplies. But it's a lot of fun, and I haven't had anybody say they dislike it. Most people are very pleased.
Now, how long have you been teaching these classes?
I'm probably about 4 or 5 years here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's lots of experience in that. So we're looking forward to having you be a part of this. Part of the purpose of Blue Ridge Art Space is that you not only go and enjoy the arts, but you become a part of the arts. You learn to make things, you learn to do things that you've never done before. So check out the Watauga County Arts Council's website, watauga-arts.org, and you're going to find a lot of information about this and a lot more.
Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.